Hello, my brothers, and welcome back to week 2 of this month's Narrow Road, where we are walking down the road of temperance. Guys, this is what we're focusing on, and this week we turn our attention to focusing on temperance with our wives. Guys, there's more divorces nowadays than there ever have been in the past, right? Marriage is becoming something that most people think is antiquated, that isn't needed, right? Everything in society is an attack on the nuclear family. Right? Everything in society is saying you don't need that. Go out and be you, be yourself, do what you want to do. Don't tie yourself down with somebody. But those of us that have, if we don't go into our marriages, or if we're not still in our marriages, realizing that we're here to serve, that we're here to serve our wives, and to lay down our life as Christ laid down his life for the church, as St. Paul says, then we're going to be in trouble. Right? So many people in my life that I know, friends, especially from my past, that were married, going to be together forever, and they're divorced after a year or two, or divorced after they've had 2 or 3 kids. And when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's because usually people were selfish. They couldn't get out of their own way. They wanted what they wanted. My needs aren't being met. My desires aren't being met. You're not being to me what you should be. Because a marriage is a partnership. It's a mutual laying down of oneself. But so often today, that doesn't happen. Right? We're raised in this culture, like I said again, in all these videos, that tells you should want what you should have what you want, you should get what you want, you should still be able to have a married life, but still be able to do what you want, go out and do, things with your buddies and every night of the week and all of that. And it's a load, man. It's a load of crap. Like when we said I do at our marriages, we said I'm yours, you're mine, right? One team. I'm giving up everything else for you. And yes, nobody's perfect. It's hard, right? Pretty quickly in marriage, you find out how selfish you are, right? When you're going, what do you mean I can't go meet my buddies at the bar on Tuesday night like I have for the last 10 years of my life? I didn't know that was part of the agreement when I signed up to marry you. We've all had those moments where you're like, what do you mean I can't sit here and watch TV and I need to share the remote or I need all these other things? And these are trivial examples I'm giving you. But there's truth in all of it, right? That we want what we want at our base desires, right? Like I want my needs met. And if you're not doing that, then this day and age, a lot of times that means I quit. I don't feel like working on it anymore. I don't want to waste my time on working on our marriage. I'd rather just simply get rid of it and never get married again or try again, step up to the plate again and see if I hit a home run this time. Instead of thinking, you know what? God gave me this person in my life for a reason. And a lot of these problems that we're experiencing in our marriage or issues that we may have in our marriage is because I simply am not doing what he's asked of me. I am not making her the most important person in my life. I refuse to relinquish that title. Guys, we see this in a lot of different ways with men acting out in lust and pornography and thinking nothing's wrong with it and I'm not hurting anybody. Yeah, you are. You're hurting your wife. Guys saying, so what? I've had a stressful day and I don't feel like dealing with the kids. I'm just going to go pour a stiff drink and sit down and mind my own business. My wife has a full-time job. And we have 3 kids. She's just as tired as I am. She more than me deserves breaks because she does a lot more than me outside of just the job. These are the issues that cause divorces in our life is when we simply won't get out of the way and surrender the way that God calls us to. As men, we look at that as weakness, right? Well, if I just lay down my life, do whatever she wants, I have no power and I get no say and I'll never be happy. The truth is, when we really lay down our lives and we temper our passions and our desires the way that God calls us to, then we start to realize that happiness comes from a very different place than what we thought. That true happiness and that joy comes from being able to give up and to lay down our lives for another. It's not just a chivalrous term. It's an actual fact. It's why you feel good when you do stuff for other people that you didn't really want to do. And you get that feeling like, that felt pretty good. It's because that's what we're called to do with our lives. And Jesus says it over and over and over again. But we have to govern our desires. We have to govern our passions. Right? We have to realize Yeah, I may want to go to this place to eat, but I'm not going to make a big stink about it because she wants to go here and she's more important to me than I am to myself. So even if I got to eat something I don't want to eat, I'll do it because I love her. And she wants this and she deserves it. And I want to show her that I love her. And again, these are trivial examples, but these are also the trivial things that cause divorces in this day and age. We're such a selfish culture now. And when we throw two of us together, if we don't approach it right, if we don't enter into that sanctity of marriage with this idea that I am laying down my life, I am no longer the person I was when I got into this as far as my selfish desires and putting myself first, then we're always going to have problems in our marriage. Right? I walked into mine thinking, oh, I'll still be able to do everything I want to do. I can still go to the bar with my buddies. I can still drink, 8, 9, 10 beers a night if I want to. I can still, do drugs behind her back. I can spend money on whatever I want because it's my money. All of those things drove a huge wedge between us, and I was lucky that I had an angel of a wife that took her vows seriously. Or I'd be sitting here, I probably wouldn't even be, first of all, I wouldn't be sitting in front of this camera, but I'd be sitting somewhere lonely and depressed and probably dead because I've given in to my own desires so much that it killed me. Guys, our wives deserve the very best of us. They deserve a man that God promised them on that altar, someone who would lay down their life, someone that would put their needs first. That only happens when we start to temper our desires. When you temper them, it's not just a giving up. We don't need to look at it that way. Well, I don't get to do what I want anymore. No, I'm actively choosing self-sacrifice, a fast, if you will, for my wife, for my own desires. Same thing sexually in the bedroom, right? How many times have you been in the mood and you look over at your wife or you say something and she's like, no. And then you get all hot and bothered and hurt and upset and you run off to your porn or whatever else because you didn't get what you want. Because you had an itch that needed to be scratched. And she wasn't willing to do that, so she must not love you. It's her fault I'm doing this. How many times have you heard that conversation in your head? When we temper our desires, when we say no to things like that, like she's not in the mood for this, and that's okay, and that's her right. And she does a lot, and she's probably tired, and it has nothing to do with me as much as her desire right now is not to engage in that. And I respect that as a husband, and I don't take it personally, and I love her through it anyway. That's what we're called to be. That's what tempering your passions and your desires and your emotions looks like. Not running off like a spoiled child and doing what we want behind their back when we don't get what we want. Right? It's getting past this sort of childlike behavior and mentality that so many men have because we simply never grow up. Video games and all the like until we're in our 50s, all of that stuff. We never fully mature. We never step into that spiritual maturity that we're called to each and every day in our life, that constant conversion. And when we're not doing that, then we're giving in to all of our desires, and it's going to be ruin for marriages. It's ruin for marriages all the time when guys don't understand the virtue of temperance and the necessity of having it in their marriage. So guys, look, there may be things that you notice in your wife that you don't understand, or you feel like you've lost something of yourself, or that you're not being loved or listened to, or your desires aren't being met. I challenge you to sit in those things and to look at it from another perspective beside your own, to look at it from her perspective, from God's perspective, to see where these desires are coming from, figure out what's disordered about them, figure out where we're not being selfless to our wives, and start to temper whatever those emotions are, whatever those passions are, and start living in moderation with our own wants and desires so that we can have a happy marriage and we can meet the desires and the wants of our wives. This is where it's made. And you don't see it any better than in St. Joseph, right? A man who never said a word in the Bible, but is a giant of virtue by the things that he did, the way that he lived his life. Guys, if you're struggling with this in your marriage, if you struggle with selfishness and temperance in your marriage is something very hard for you, then go to Joseph. Go to Joseph because he is the Mecca. He is the billboard. He is the model for temperance. Right? He didn't cut and run when Gabriel said, guess what? She's going to be a virgin. She's going to have a child. It's not going to be yours. And you're never going to be able to lay with her. He didn't cut and run. He stayed around and he loved her and he loved Jesus and he became the man that God called him to be, and he lived out that vocation with a virtue unlike any other. Guys, go to Joseph with this struggle. If you're struggling with temperance in your marriage, then go to him, ask for his intercession, and just focus on the words of Paul to die to your wife, to your selfish desires, to die for your wife, to lay down your life the way that Christ laid down his life for the church. Brothers, maybe a tough week. It can be in our relationships, I know. Guys, I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. God bless you. And God bless you in this journey of temperance with your wife this week.